And welcome back to Martinsville Speedway. Yes, that is right. That is dark sky behind you because this is the first time ever that there has been a race run under the lights at Martinsville Speedway, Phil.
Really incredible. Been coming here for over 30 years now, and I never thought I'd see the day that we ran under the lights at Martinsville. But Musco Lighting did a terrific job here, and everyone at the racetrack, Clay Campbell, all his crew, did a super job getting this racetrack ready for night racing.
We take a look at the starting grid. Ted Christopher will start on the inside of row one. Chuck Hosfeld, who actually qualified first but drew the second fill, will start on the outside of row two.
Yeah, NASCAR has a little unique situation here. They actually draw to see how many they're going to redraw, 6, 8, or 10. This time they redrew number 8. So the 8 guys, the top 8 qualifiers, pick a little pill out of the bucket, and whatever that pill is where they start. So you may have qualified 8th, and you may end up with a pole, or vice versa. You may have qualified on the pole, you end up 8th. But Chuck Hosfeld did go back far. He only went back to 2nd.
And Ted Christopher actually qualified 7th, drew the number 1 pill, so he will start on the pole for tonight's race. Now, there were 20 positions that were locked in during qualifying, and then we had 8 provisionals. There were 5 from the North and 3 from the South Division that filled up those provisionals to lock in the top 28 starters.
Yeah, then we had a qualifying race here for the final 15 starters, which was always part of what Martinsville was. We used to come here back in the 70s and 80s, and we would have qualifying races. We would qualify a few cars, then the majority of the field would really be set by the qualifying races. This time they took 15 cars out of the qualifying race. Rich Ruggiero just dominated.
That's perfect because Reggie Ruggiero, they're on the inside of row 15. Anthony Sessler on the outside of him. They make up the first row of cars that had to drive their way into this race.
And he was so dominant. We talked to him just before the race, and he said, I had a great car. I just got real loose qualifying. I really shouldn't even be in this qualifying race. I should have been good enough to qualify, but he knows he's got a good car. And the thing is, he had 50 laps of practice in relatively the same conditions that these drivers we're going to see right now. And only the drivers in the qualifying race really have been under the lights here at Martinsville.
And the only thing that Reggie Ruggiero has as far as advantage is he was able to test his car for 50 laps. The problem is that he didn't have any cars to actually have to go around because he dominated that race and stayed out in front the whole entire time.
Good shot of Reg right there.
Yep, well, let's take a look at the half-mile Martinsville Speedway they call the paperclip.
Yeah, it really is. Very, very long straightaways, extremely tight turns. This is the racetrack when we talk about with the cars or the trucks, the Nextel Cup cars or the Craftsman Truck Series trucks. They use so much brakes here, but they talk to the modified guys. They don't use that much brake here because they have such wide tires. You see 43 cars, a lot of cars starting on a small half-mile racetrack like Martinsville.
And it is called the Made in America Whelen 300. We have 250 laps that are going to take place right now, and the green flag has flown, and we are underway. First time ever under the lights at Martinsville Speedway, and it is Ted Christopher on the inside, Chuck Hosfeld on the outside, still battling for that top spot.
A lot of rubber down on the racetrack. Remember, we just had a 50-lap qualifying race with 18 cars in it just a few moments ago, so a lot of rubber already down on the racetrack.
Chuck tucked in right behind Ted Christopher, and so they are nose to tail as they go down the backstretch. And Chuck had mentioned that he didn't mind starting on the outside of row 1. He knew that he could lay back. He's got a lot of time, 250 laps.
That's a long race. We heard Teddy Christopher say we got us trouble in turn 2.
Early on, caution coming out, caution number 1, that's the 58, driven by Kevin Goodell. He gets spun around.
There's cars all over the racetrack. Majority of these cars just stopped. You see Reg right there, the 44. The majority of these cars stopped because the racetrack was blocked. There's the 89 Brian Kramer right there. 83, that's Tim Brown. He's one of the Southern modified drivers. I don't see any damage to Reg's car. I think he was one of the cars that just stopped to avoid being involved in that accident.
And Reg is a guy we talked to, as you had mentioned before the race. He made the comment he's just worried about guys that might not be slowing up behind him when he's going to check up to slow down for things like this, but it looks like nothing happened to that number 44 modified.
So many times you have a situation where you have trouble in front of you. You try to throw your hand up and wave to the guys behind you, but they cannot get stopped quite as quickly as you can, and then they end up running in the back of you.
Let's take a look at what took place. This is lap 2 of this race, and there you see that 58 of Kevin Goodell spun around.
Yeah, that was the 58 had already spun around. Then everyone else was trying to avoid the situation here. You see there's just one lane open right through the middle of this accident, but racetrack pretty much blocked.
Reg Ruggiero, we had mentioned, he was the man who was able to win the qualifying race to get into this. Reg Ruggiero, 43 career wins in the modified tour.
Yeah, talked to him a little bit before the race, and he doesn't run full time anymore. So the people that he drives for don't necessarily want to run full time, but he said that works out well for him. He's been around this series a long time.
That's Michael Clifton in the number 60, currently third in the Southern Modified Division point standings. He's got sparks flying out from underneath that car, so obviously some problems with the right rear. It is flat as he goes down pit road and looks as though he'll have to change the right rear early on.
Yeah, NASCAR will allow him to change that right rear tire, and without a penalty. They're allowed 6 extra tires for this race. The 4 they start the race on, plus 6. If they have a flat tire on the car or a bent wheel, they will not charge him for that tire.
And so Michael Clifton having some work done on his car. Teddy Christopher in the number 13 out in front of the field. And we'll see if he's able to hold on and claim his first win ever at Martinsville Speedway for the Modifieds. And we're under the lights for the Made in America Whelen 300 on Speed Channel. The accident has been cleared up out of turn number 2. And the lights are off on the pace car. It will make its way down pit road, and that will leave Ted Christopher in charge again. Chuck Hosfeld on the outside of him, still making up row number 1. Eric Beers on the inside of row 2 in that number 3. And not a lot of positions have changed so far, Phil.
That's right, but double file restart. However you're running on the racetrack is how you're going to restart double file through the first 175 laps of this race. Good start by Teddy this time. Chuck was able to hang with him on the outside on the initial start of the race. Eric Beers, the 3 car, settling in 3rd.
Ted Christopher right in front of Chuck Hosfeld. Get that straightened out. Eric Beers in 3rd in the number 3.
Tony Hirschman, that's a fellow that knows his way in a modified. The 48, we caught a glimpse of him on the inside of a side-by-side battle.
Currently holding on to the 4th position, number 10 of Eddie Flimke. Look at the nose-to-tail racing here as they work their way through the corner.
Most of the drivers talk about this being a pretty difficult racetrack to pass on. I talked to Teddy Christopher before the race and said, what kind of pit strategy are you going to have? And he said, well, track position is so critical here. I don't want to try to get my tires so late that I end up give up all my track position. So most of the drivers talking about how difficult it is to pass here at Martinsville. We see that in all the divisions that race here.
And one other thing that would come into play as far as pit strategy is they will have a mandatory pit halftime stop for this race because we're bringing the 2 series together.
That's right. And, most of the South cars aren't used to pitting. Got trouble with the 07. That's Frank Fleming, I think.
Yep. Frank Fleming currently 9th in the Southern Division.
He may have just got wide outside of the groove, gotten up to the marbles, but most of the Southern guys typically don't pit in their races, so they didn't want to penalize them and make them have to put fuel and buy all the apparatus it takes to put fuel in these cars during a race. So they're going to have a halftime break. They're going to allow the fellas to put fuel in the cars and do any other changes other than change tires. They will have to change tires during the racing, either on the green or during a caution, not at the halftime break.
14 laps complete so far, or 13 laps complete. We're on our 14th, and it has been all Ted Christopher so far. Gary, how's he doing?
Well, right now I just checked in with Barry Connell, the crew chief on Ted Christopher's number 13 car, and right now Barry said to Teddy, just ride. He says, that's all I want you to do. He says, you got a good race car. We know that you can win here and get your first ever win here at Martinsville. So the important thing right now is just ride.
And it's pretty easy to do when you don't have to worry about passing anyone. Right now, he's out in front. He's got clean air in front of him. But pretty soon, he'll be catching up to some lap traffic. Again, you mentioned 43 cars on this track.
That's a lot of cars on a half-mile racetrack. So Teddy's going to have a lot of traffic here before too much longer. Good shot of the 10 car right there. There's Eddie Flimke. Oh, caution on the racetrack.
Second caution of the night has come out. And again, the 58 of Kevin Goodale gets spun around. Looks as though another car had spun on the track as Kevin Goodale went by him.
That's Bobby Hutchins, the 14 car. He is sponsored by the Winston Cup Museum, which is fairly new in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Bobby, a normal, regular competitor at Bowman Gray Stadium, runs the Southern Tour this year, first year of the Southern Tour.
And so our second caution has come out as Bobby Hutchins tries to get pointed in the right direction. And once he does that, they'll all get in line. We'll come back when they're in line to more racing at Martinsville Speedway. Great crowd on hand for the Made in America Whelen 300 on Speed Channel. Under the lights at Martinsville Speedway. A very cool evening, something that's been a little bit irregular here. It's normally been pretty warm this time of the year, but a nice cool evening. A beautiful night for racing as they line up again, double file restart.
I have a feeling this will not be the last night race we ever see at Martinsville, Virginia.
Chuck Hosfeld on the outside trying to get by Teddy Christopher. The preferred line obviously on the inside of the track right now.
Chuck's hanging in extremely well right now on the outside.
Problems again on the restart. We've got a wreck in turn number 2. The 87 gets spun around of Alex Hogue. Also involved in that is the 1 of Burt Myers.
There's the 31 of Gene Pack also involved.
So 3 cars getting spun around, bringing out our 3rd caution of the night. And it's been difficult to get any consistent racing going on so far, Phil. How difficult is that for them to figure out how their cars are acting right now?
Well, it really is. They only had, what, a dozen laps or something like that before we saw the first caution flag. So that's not even long enough, really, for the drivers to even feel out their cars. So they want to get a good 30, 40 lap run before they can tell their crew chiefs what kind of adjustments they may want to make. Burt Myers is a 2-time winner on the Southern Tour this year. So he's had a terrific season so far.
Currently leading the points in the Southern Division right now as well. But again, they're only 5 races into their season. And so they have 13 scheduled races to run, and they have 8 remaining. Great crowd on hand for the Made in America Whelen 300 on Speed Channel. Again, under the lights for the first time at Martinsville Speedway. And it is the Whelen Modified Tour that gets to experience this racetrack under the lights.
Again, double file restart. Teddy Christopher, the 13 car leader. Chuck Hosfeld, the 50, running in second. He will restart on the outside. The 10 of Eddie Flemke is third. He starts on the inside of the second row.
He got around the 3 of Eric Beers, and so Eric Beers on the outside will be 4th. Scored 4th as they go across the start-finish line. The green flag has come back out again. Again, 250 laps taking place for the Whelen 300 this evening. Teddy Christopher hasn't had much of a challenge as of yet, but it looks like the man on the move is the 10 of Eddie Flemke as he tries to go on the inside of Chuck Hosfeld. He's not giving that position up, and so Hosfeld could drop back to 3rd if he doesn't fall into line. He's going to drop back to 3rd now.
Yeah, great move by Eddie Flemke, and now he's going to bring Eric Beers, the 3 car, with him. They're side by side, the 3 and the 50. There's Tony Hirschman, the 48.
This is exactly what Chuck Hosfeld was worried about by starting on the outside. He didn't want to get that train run on the inside of him and not be able to get in.
Well, he really zings it down to the corner. He's got a great handling car right now. If he could just beat Eddie Flemke down to the corner, he could pull right back in front of him. I think he probably did it.
I think he has made the pass, and so Hosfeld has made his way back up to 2nd, and that is impressive because he did it on the outside of the track so far.
Yeah, that may bode well for him too, especially when our leader Teddy Christopher gets in some traffic. He may get pinned in the bottom. Chuck may be able to drive by on the outside.
Tony Hirschman and Doug Kobe battling right now for the 6th position.
66 of John Blewett. He was the only car that did not practice today. We asked him why, and he said, well, we didn't feel like we needed to practice in the afternoon because we were going to race at night. We didn't feel like we would learn anything from that. So he kept his car in the garage area the entire time, and he's running pretty good. He's running 7th.
Yeah, John Blewett, he qualified in the 5th position, but then drew the 6th pill, and so he started 6th. And they qualified last night under the lights, so it was more of a condition that they were experiencing during the race.
That's right, but sometimes your setup is so different for qualifying that you really don't learn anything qualifying but what may help you in the race, because number one, you're really concentrating, and there's been times when I qualified and someone was, how was the car? I said, I don't remember. All I know is I made it around as fast as I could.
Well, look at Chuck Hosfeld almost trying to get by the 13 right now. Gary, how's he doing?
Well, I just checked in with crew chief Phil Moran on that Chuck Hosfeld car. I said, Chuck, you got caught up on that outside and lost a spot or 2. What's he saying? He said, Gary, this car is good on the bottom. It's good on the top side of the racetrack. No problem. That's why we're back up in 2nd, challenging that number 13 car.
And it looks as though he might try to go on the high side to make the pass. He looked down low early, but now he's got confidence that he can pass on the top.
Absolutely. He learned by being able to get back by those cars that got by him on the inside that he could make the outside work. So he may try to ride right here for a little bit, but if he gets a shot at the outside of Teddy Christopher, I think he's going to take it.
Well, and Teddy Christopher doesn't make very many mistakes. That's why he's been able to acquire 20 wins in the modified series so far in his career.
There's a 0-0. We caught just a glimpse of Todd Szegedy, a former champion in this series. Only his second start. He actually moved down south there, works for Robert Yates Racing, but he's still a race car driver and still would like to get an opportunity to do some racing. And he finished third in his only start this year, and this is only his second start in the modifieds.
Todd Szegedy, one of 5 that are series champions that are running in this race right now. 6-time series champion Mike Stefanik started in the 21st position. That was a little bit rare to see him start so far back, but we're expecting him to make his way back toward the front.
He's gained a few spots. He's up to 16th right now. Great run right there. That was the 0-1 of Rick Fuller, former series champion, right behind the 66 of John Blewett.
John Blewett trying to hold on to that position as Rick Fuller tries to take it away. That's a great battle for 7th. Fuller looking to the inside of John Blewett the third as they work down the back stretch and into 3 and 4. .37 of the 250 laps now complete, and still out in front, holding on to that top spot, Ted Christopher. He's led all 37 laps so far, but I'm guessing that Chuck Hosfeld is just waiting for that one opening to be able to get by him.
Chuck had the fastest lap in final practice. He was the quickest car, so he definitely has a great piece. As we mentioned earlier, he sat on the pole but ended up drawing the second pill, so he started second.
And early on in that restart, we saw Chuck Hosfeld being able to work his way back around on the high side of the track. Now it looks as though Ted Christopher's been able to run a little bit of laps. He's got the heat up in the tires, and he doesn't look like he's got as much problems now with Chuck Hosfeld, as Hosfeld's dropped back maybe 2-3 car lengths.
Yeah, but Chuck may be just riding right now too. They don't pay any bonus points for leading laps in the modified tour, so he doesn't necessarily have to get up there to lead a lap to get 5 bonus points. So he may be riding right now. He knows there's going to be at least one pit stop, maybe a couple pit stops. There's going to be a halftime break. He's playing a pretty smart race right now.
That halftime break, that was because of the Southern Division and the Northern Division coming together for this race, Phil. You had mentioned a little bit of it earlier.
Yeah, they just didn't want to penalize the Southern guys because they typically don't fuel their cars in their Southern races. So they don't have all the paraphernalia because NASCAR requires all the gas men to have fireproof uniforms and helmets and head socks and things like that. So they said, why don't we just put fuel in them under a more casual time during the halftime break? We don't have to do it under green flag or caution flag racing. So that's what they decided to do. But they will not be able to change tires during that halftime break. They will have to do that during normal running conditions, either green or obviously caution flag.
Here's the battle for third, and we say it's a battle for third, but it looks as though Eddie Flimke might be holding up the pack because we see a big gap between Chuck Hosfeld and Eddie Flimke currently, who's running in the 3rd position. That's the 3 of Eric Beers that's right behind him. And you see the distance between 2nd and 3rd right now, and Eric Beers is right behind the 10 of Eddie Flimke. But out in front, it's Ted Christopher. He has led all 43 laps of the laps run so far. We'll see if he can hold on and claim win number 1 from Martinsville. And welcome back to the Made in America Whelen 300 on Speed Channel at Martinsville Speedway. Under the lights for the first time. Ted Christopher now up into the lap traffic, and so he has to work his way around some of the slower lap traffic. That's Ted Christopher in the number 13. Just behind him in the number 50, Chuck Hosfeld.
Yeah, that's when Chuck may try to take advantage. If Teddy gets pinned in by one of these lap cars, Chuck right on his back bumper.
Nose to tail, Teddy Christopher in the front, and that number 13, the number 50 of Chuck Hosfeld just behind him. As now they have their work cut out for them. They've got to work around some of the slower lapped cars. Again, there's a pretty good sized gap between Chuck Hosfeld and number 50 and 3rd place, the number 10 of Eddie Flimke.
There's a little bit over a 2-second gap between Chuck in 2nd and Eddie Flimke in 3rd. You know, the 50 car that Chuck's driving is the same car that Todd Szegedy won the championship with a couple years ago.
We'd mentioned Todd Szegedy, one of the 5 that are series champions running in this race. Rick Fuller, one of the other ones. Jerry Marquis has won a championship. Mike Stefanik, 6 championships to his name. And Tony Hirschman, the other driver in the field, has 4 modified championships.
lot of heavy traffic right now. There's the 10 of Eddie Flemke. There's Eric Beers, the 3. Tony Hirschman, the 48. John Blewett, the 66 we caught a glimpse of.
Eddie Beers was a lot closer to the 10 of Flemke earlier, but it looks as though now that they're working through the lap traffic, that is even starting to spread out a little bit.
Yeah, it sure has. But again, there's still a big gap between second and third, but from third on back, it's fairly tight here. As you see, they're trying to lap by the Wade Cole, number 33.
Focusing on the number 3 of Eric Beers.
A lot of history in that car right there. The late Lenny Bowler ran that car back, goes all the way back to the coupe days back in the 60s and the 70s. So it's great to see that 3 car. Saw Ronnie Bouchard, I think, drove that car years ago. Maybe even Kenny Bouchard, his brother. Eric
Beers has a win in his career. So far, that win came in 2005 at Seekonk earlier this year.
Oh, trouble,
and a problem
right in front
spin. And so our 4th caution of the night has come out. This time we had quite a few more green flag laps before this problem came out. That's the 88 of Richie Coy getting spun around. So Richie having to negotiate, get the car spun back around and headed the right direction as he waits for the traffic to go by.
Not a tremendous amount of turning radius in these modified cars. Richie able to get it turned back around. There's the 48 of Tony Hirschman.
And so, Phil, at what point in time do you think we're going to start seeing possible first half pit stops? Will guys come in, change some tires now to maybe make some adjustments on their cars to make them a little bit better?
I think the cars up front, I don't know why they would stop in the first half of the race, because they obviously they know they're going to have time to make adjustments at the halftime break. So I really would be surprised if the cars up front would stop in the first half and put tires on.
So Teddy Christopher out in front of the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld, who's just in front of the 10 of Eddie Flemke, and the 3 of Eric Beers. Rounding out the top 5 is the 48 of Tony Hirschman. We'll be back with more. Welcome back to the Made in America Whelen 300 on Speed Channel from Martinsville Speedway, Martinsville, Virginia. Beautiful weather tonight for racing, and it's been all Ted Christopher so far as we're about to go back to racing for the 5th time. We've had 4 cautions fly so far. The most recent one, the 88 of Richie Coy, getting spun around. Ted Christopher with a great restart. Chuck Hosfeld on the outside of him will duck in to second without any problems. And now, because of the restart, they don't have to worry about the slower lap traffic anymore.
That's right, because Chuck Hosfeld was able to close right up on Teddy's rear bumper when they got into some heavy traffic. But now he's going to be a few laps trouble again. There's Jerry Marquis, the 4 car.
31 also getting involved in that. That's Gene Pack in that 31. Jerry Marquis in the 4 getting spun around now in the number 4. That yellow number 4 coming back onto the track. And so as soon as we talk about 4 cautions, it becomes 5. And welcome back to Martinsville Speedway for the Made in America Whelen 300 on Speed Channel. Ted Christopher out in front of the field. He's been the dominant car so far. Chuck Hosfeld's been trying to find a way to get around him, but it's been difficult going so far as we get ready for the restart.
Teddy's been so good on these starts. There's another great start right there. See, he's already got a car length before he even gets to the start-finish line.
Actually, that works out well for Chuck Hosfeld. He's able to duck right down in behind him.
Yeah, he doesn't mind. He doesn't really want to stay out on the outside and race Teddy there, especially if he's not going to be able to quite get by him, because it allows everyone else to pull up on the inside of him.
Side-by-side racing after the restart, and they will get back into single file line, the preferred line down on the bottom of the track. But we've seen Chuck Hosfeld run on the high side and actually pass people.
He really has. He lost a couple 3 positions a few cautions ago, a few restarts ago. Got a great side-by-side battle. There's the 66 of John Blewett, the 77 of Doug Kobe running side-by-side. John Blewett is making a move towards the front.
6th and 7th position there. John Blewett just in front of the 77 of Doug Kobe. And again, this is 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th.
Another shot of the 10 of Eddie Flemke holding this crowd up. There's a gap in front of him. He talked about that gap earlier. when you see a gap in front of you, you know that you're going to get the bumper eventually, because the drivers behind you, they can only show you trouble. Right there it is, right there.
That's the bumper you were talking about, Phil.
Yeah, looks like a lot of damage to the right rear tire on the 10 of Eddie Flemke. There's Doug Kobe in the 77. They were running nose to tail, I believe.
A lot of damage there to the right rear.
Hopefully it's just a flat tire and they can, ooh, there's a lot of cars stopped down there.
Gets spun around. That's Dave Etheridge in the number 54 that had gotten sideways, it looked like. Oh, and you see the wheel coming off of the car there.
Yeah, the tire and the wheel came off. Bobby Hutchins involved in the aftermath of that, I think.
See the smoke coming out of the engine on the number 14. Looks as though he's trying to restart.
A lot of times it's really difficult. You see the 10 of Eddie Flemke with no wheel or tire on the right rear. A lot of times it's very difficult after these engines get as hot as they do to restart them.
Well, Phil, we talked about sparks at the beginning of the show, but I wasn't expecting them to be this bright.
Nor was Eddie Flemke, unfortunately.
He's going to try to make his way down pit road. You see the red flag with the yellow cross on it, meaning that it's closed, but there's nothing he can do right now. He's got to get in and get worked on it. And we take a look. It looked as though he didn't get help there.
I thought he did get help, but then something came off. I don't know. You know, almost looked like something flew off the car. I don't know if maybe he broke something getting down in the corner. If we can take a look at that again.
It looked as though something broke on the car because it broke free, and it didn't look like there was a car close enough to have given him any assistance in turning around.
Let's look at that again, Rick, and see if we can see as they drive down in the corner. He looked like he just turned around all of a sudden. He may have got contact after the fact, but watch, something's going to fly off the left rear corner of his car. It bounces off the outside wall right now. I'm not sure something didn't break on the right rear of that car, and that's what caused him to turn around. That's what we saw. Here's our points leader, Tony Hirschman, the 48, coming in the pits following the 4 of Jerry Marquis.
So pits taking place. You see the sparks coming out the 48. This definitely not a good points night.
I think he's got a flat left front tire right here, Rick.
Sure enough. Leading in the points coming into this race. Just 13 points ahead of Ted Christopher. Again, Tony Hirschman with 4 wins already on the season out of the 13 races that we've run. Ted Christopher with 4 wins as well, so they've accounted for 8 wins between just the 2 of them.
Let's take a look one more time, Rick, and see if we can see. Look at the right rear tire as he drives down the corner. It starts wobbling before he even gets sideways, and that's what happened. Then John Blewett may have touched him, but that was after the fact, and then something flies off the car. You can see it slide, just hits the outside wall now, so he definitely broke a rear hub or something like that on the right rear of his car as he entered the corner.
Those 2 cars coming to stop up against the wall, and here again, that is the 48 of Tony Hirschman, 4-time series champion. In the modified division, he was looking to make it 5. This could be a little bit of a setback as you see the sticker going on the left front of that car.
Again, that was a flat tire, so NASCAR will allow him to change that tire. That will not go against his allotment. But he lost a tremendous amount of track position because there's 28 cars right now on the lead lap.
He was being scored last time by in the number 48 in 33rd position. Because of that accident. Some of the cars have been able to move up, as we had mentioned. The 10 and the 77 had to stop on the track. They're continuing the work on the number 10 of Eddie Flemke. Again, that was the car that we took a look at as something came flying off of it.
Yeah, there goes the tire and there goes the wheel. So he either broke a wheel or broke a hub or something as that car entered the corner, and then it left the scene.
Severe damage for the number 10 of Eddie Flemke. The crew going to work on that car, trying to get him back out onto the track. Eddie Flemke out of Southington, Connecticut.
Had a 3rd at Jennerstown earlier this year. That's his best finish so far.
Again, he qualified 8th, but through the draw was able to start in the 5th position. So was running competitively tonight before the problems.
He's got pretty major trouble right now. He's going to lose several laps while they try to make repairs on this car. Not exactly sure what was damaged, so it's going to be a while.
And let's head down, and I think Gary Danko's caught up with one of our drivers that's having some work done. Gary?
Well, the current point leader in the Southern Whelen Modified Tour, Burt Myers, he is behind the wall with car number 1, got caught up in that altercation. The crew feverishly working on the right front of the car. They've taken the hood off the machine. They also took the front nose piece off. The front bumper is crushed right in against the radiator. So a heartbreak situation for the point leader in the Southern Whelen Modified Tour as he's still strapped into his race car as he watches his crew go to work on car number 1. The current point leader in the Whelen Modified Tour, Tony Hirschman,
You talked about Tony Hirschman in that number 48, our current points leader. He had the problems and had to come down pit road. He's currently being shown in the 28th position. As we restart, Ted Christopher out in front. And now Chuck Hosfeld not able to tuck in behind him immediately because that is the number 3 of Eric Beers on the inside. And so Eric Beers trying to take over the number 2 spot from Chuck Hosfeld. Hosfeld not giving it up though as he goes on the high side and still holds on to second.
Chuck's got a very good car on the high side. He's really one of the only guys that really has been on the high side and been able to get by some people. Got a good side-by-side battle. That's the 66 of John Blewett on the outside. This is 79 of Mike Christopher, Teddy's twin brother, on the inside. He's making a move forward.
Teddy Christopher out in front of twin brother 79 of Mike Christopher, currently in 5th position, so making his way up toward the front.
The 0-1 of Rick Fuller in 4th, right in front of the 79 of Mike Christopher. There's Todd Zegedy, the 00. Mike Stefanik, now we started way back. We're not used to seeing him start way back. 6-time modified champion. He's in the 16 car. He's already worked his way into the top 10 right now. He's being shown in 8th. That's him right there. Junior Miller, the 69 Southern modified driver, right behind him.
And that's what patience will do for you. Mike Stefanik knows how to win championships. Well, he started back in 21st position, and in Phil, as you had just mentioned, he's already up into the 8th position, looking at Todd Zegedy to take over 7.
Rick, he's won 66 of these modified races. Is that incredible or what?
He is the man who the records have been set that everyone is chasing. We do have the 2nd highest wins as far as wins in this series, and that was Reggie Ruggiero, and he has 43 wins in this series. So between the 2 drivers, over 100 wins just between those 2 guys in modifieds.
Great shot of Mike Stefanik. You know, he was a champion in the Busch North Series and the Modified Series simultaneously 2 years in a row. Incredible. Yeah.
97 and 98, I believe.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
So Todd Zegedy just in front of the 16, Mike Stefanik.
Look at the biggest movers right there. See the 87 of Alex So. He's moved up 22 positions. There's a 0 of Darren Shear. He's moved up 21. There's Reg up 19 spots into the top 10. Randy Butner up 16 positions, and Mike Stefanik into the top 10, up 13 positions from his start.
Again at the halfway point, 100. Whoa, getting a little bit loose there was Reg in that number 44. And he had mentioned a loose car in qualifying, but he had a 50-lap qualifying race that you would think he could have got that ironed out.
That's right. He had that was a situation there. He was trying to look underneath the 69 of Junior Miller and may have just pinched it down a little bit. He's trying to make his way by Junior Miller. He's already up into the 10th position, and he wants more.
Best finish of 4th so far in 2005 for Reggie Ruggiero.
A little contact there. He made a little contact with Junior Miller. That's the battle for 9th. Junior Miller from Winston-Salem, or Winston-Salem area. The 69 Hayes Jewelers sponsored car. There's Reg, looks to the inside, not quite able to make it work this time. Now he's going to try it on the outside.
Junior Miller trying to hold on to the position. That's 9th for Junior Miller and 10th for Reggie Ruggiero.
Junior Miller ran some Winston Cup races back in the 70s. Remember Junior? Gary, what's going on with the 44 Reg Ruggiero?
Well, I checked in with Reggie's crew. He said right now the car is handling very well, just the way he wants it. He's being very patient on the racetrack. And of course, the Reg knows this racetrack on the back of his hand. He's had victories here in the past. and he has 43 career wins on the Whelen Modified Tour.
He knows how to get to the front then with all those wins. But right now, all he's trying to do is get by the 69 of Junior Miller, and he's got his hands full.
He sure does. Junior's not really blocking him. He's giving him some room, but it's a pretty narrow racetrack. But that's allowed the group behind him to catch up.
And now they're working by the 33 of Wade Cole, or trying to get by the 33 of Wade Cole. Junior Miller just behind him in the 69, and then again Reg in the 44. That is a battle for 9th position.
Reg gets to the inside. They make a little contact.
Now it's side by side a drag race, but it's going to be won by Junior Miller. Maybe not so quick. Oh, and they get on the curb, and now they're heavy contact. Junior Miller and Reg Ruggiero. Nothing as far as cautions flying because everyone keeps going in the same direction. That's the 15 driven by Zach Sylvester.
Let's look at this, Rick. As they drive down the corner, Reg makes a move to the inside. He drives to the inside. Junior comes down the hill. It forces Reg to run over the curb, and when he does, it just shoots his front end out into the 69, and then Junior, trying to control his car, comes back and they make contact again.
Now this is open wheel racing. Does that mess up his right front tire, Phil?
Well, it certainly can. It can knock the toe end out of his car right now. You see he's lost some positions, obviously, in trying to control that car. He's back behind the 15 of Zach Sylvester. Let's see if he can get it. He's currently being shown 11th. He was battling for 9th there. I think he doesn't seem to be as strong right now. He may be just feeling that car out to make sure nothing's wrong with it.
We see the rotors glowing already on these cars. A lot of brakes being used. Again, the paper clip of Martinsville Speedway. Very long straights, very tight corners.
Reg said as long as these straightaways are, you just don't use that much brake in these modifieds like you do in some of the cars, but in traffic is when you really use a lot of brake, and that's why you're going to see the rotors going. We saw him trying to work so hard to try to get by Junior Miller. Unfortunately not able to do it, but he was using a lot of brakes as he tried to drive inside of Junior Miller.
Back out in front, it's Ted Christopher holding on to the top spot. He has not relinquished that through 93 laps. It's Ted Christopher out in front of Chuck Hosfeld. Hosfeld now about 3 cars back from Ted Christopher. It's been a total Ted Christopher day so far. He has run very well in this one, coming up on 100 laps. So Ted Christopher out in front of the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld and Eric Beers in the number 3. Rick Fuller holds on to 4th, and in 5th it's the 79 of Mike Christopher. And the caution flag has flown in the Made in America Whelen 300 on Speed Channel. This is the 6th caution of the night. And now coming down pit road, we've got a few cars that are going to make a pit stop before the halftime break, Phil.
Not a bad strategy. You see the 16 of Mike Stefanik. There's the 69 of Junior Miller. They come in, they're going to put their tires on now because you see, I think he's going to put rear tires on the 16 car. Actually, he's going to put right side tires. You see the lug wrench is knocking off both lug nuts on the right side.
Phil, I think they loosened the lug nuts on that right rear. They did.
Yeah, on both right side tires and the left rear. I think they're going to change 3 tires. See, there's a 77 of Doug Kobe. He's also in the pits. It's not what we were talking about. It's not a bad strategy because they come in the pits now. They get their tires at the halftime break. They can put fuel in them. They can work on some other adjustments. They cannot change tires, and this is probably going to be all the tires they'll put on for this entire race.
They had 6 left in their pit stall that they could bring back, so they could have 2 more tires. Those cars that are putting 4 on right now, they could put another 2 on if they need them later in the race.
But we know, or we feel like that Teddy Christopher, our leader, Chuck Hosfeld, some of the guys that were running right up front will have to pit at some point for tires, and when they do, that's going to give track position to people like Mike Stefanik, Doug Kobe, and all those other guys that pitted on this caution flag.
Again, at the halftime break, they were not allowed to change tires. They can fuel and make adjustments to those cars, but they're not going to be able to change tires. So a big strategy move here for some of these cars that have come in to take their tires now before the halftime break.
See the 54 of Dave Etheridge. Looks like he's taping up his hood.
Etheridge had done some work on that car, and they're continuing to do that with, looks as though, the duct tape going on the front.
Their leaders stay out on the racetrack. Teddy Christopher, the 13. There's the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld. He's being shown in second right now.
Eric Beers holding on to third, Rick Fuller in fourth, and that's 79 of Mike Christopher, currently in the fifth spot. Reason for this caution, there was some debris on the track, and so the officials out there taking care of that, getting that back off of the track so that we can get back to racing. But some of the cars taking advantage of this yellow flag coming out just before the halftime break. We've just passed 100 laps complete. Again, we will have a mandatory caution that will take place in lap 125. We see one of the tires that have come off of the cars, all the rubber packed onto that.
Yeah, these are very, very soft Hoosier tires. I talked to Jay Hedgecock earlier, and I said, you know, a lot of times at Martinsville, especially when you get a start or a restart, it takes a few laps for the tires to get warm before they really stick good. He said, no, these tires are so wide and so soft, they're good right away.
We've seen good restarts from Ted Christopher so far tonight. Hasn't had too much problem with Chuck Hosfeld yet. Chuck Hosfeld has restarted on the outside. Again, we'll go double file restarts until lap 175. Again, this is a 250 lap race, but at 175 they will go back to single file restarts. But it's Ted Christopher and Chuck Hosfeld that will start up on the front row again. The three of Eric Beers will start on the inside of row 2, and just outside of him, the 01 will be Rick Fuller. Mike Christopher and the 66 of John Blewett III make up row number 3. Again, this being the 7th start of the night. We've had 6 cautions so far. Pace car will make its way down pit road and put the handle back in Ted Christopher's hands as far as dominating this race. He has done it from the start until lap 101. We'll see if he can hold off Chuck Hosfeld again on another restart. Great start by Ted Christopher, and another great run for the 01 of Rick Fuller as Fuller makes his way to the inside of Eric Beers and is able to take over the 3rd spot from Beers on that restart.
He was up side by side with Chuck Hosfeld, but Chuck gets such a good run off of turn 2 on the outside. Anytime anyone's got underneath him, and he's been able to make that run off turn number 2 on the outside, and he beats him down into turn number 3.
Back to single file now. Todd Zegedy just in front of the 15 of Zach Sylvester.
Side-by-side racing there. There's the 18 of Donnie Leah on the inside, the white car. The 28 on the outside is Taylor Haight. 44 of Reg Ruggiero. Remember, he had to qualify through a qualifying race here, but he's worked his way into the top 10.
Again, pit strategy coming into play now as some cars have stopped. And again, our leader, the 13 of Ted Christopher, did not stop. Garrett, do you know why?
Yeah, I just talked with Barry Coonell, the crew chief on that number 13 car. I says, Barry, how come you guys didn't stop? He said, you know what, Gary? We're going to be stopping for that mandatory pit stop coming up very soon, and there's no sense in having him come through the rear of the field to work his way back to the front. So they're just going to hold off for that mandatory pit stop coming up very shortly.
But Gary, the problem with that is he's not going to be able to put tires on in this mandatory pit stop. If he's planning on changing tires at any point during this race, then he's going to lose his track position to people like Stefanik, Doug Coby, and all those guys that pitted on this most recent caution flag.
And we're going to have to wait and see if Stefanik is able to move through the field. Maybe Ted Christopher says, you know what, it's too hard to pass. I'm going to stay up front because track position is so difficult to get back if you have to go to the back of the field.
You know, we've seen there's a 33 right there having some trouble, obviously. Wade Cole.
He is on pit road, so we're taking a look at him.
A lot of damage to the left rear corner, but I think that was an earlier incident.
There's Mike top 2.
Mike Stefanik is already back up to the 11th position. Jerry Marquis, who spun earlier and also made a pit stop, he's up in the 10th position.
Now 43 cars started this race. We have 27 that are on the lead lap, and so even with a great pit stop, Mike Stefanik still started back in the 20s, but he has worked his way, as you had mentioned, back up to the top, almost top 10 and 11th right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He's got a great car. You know, he had moved up very close to the top 10 prior to his pit stop. Actually, he was in the top 10 when he made his pit stop all the way back from his 21st starting position.
Stefanik had made it all the way up to 8th before he came in for that pit stop, but it looks as though the tires have definitely helped him. We got to keep our eye on the number 16 of Stefanik. He may be moving up into position where he will definitely have something for Ted Christopher after the halftime stop.
Zach Sylvester, the 15, makes a move on the inside of Todd Szegedy, the 00. Zach got a couple. Donnie Lee is going to follow him by. Zach had a couple second place finishes the first 2 races this year. Had a great start to the season.
Donnie Lee taking a spot away from Todd Szegedy as well.
Donnie Lee has got a couple wins already this year.
And so positions changing at the middle of this field, but out in front it has been all Ted Christopher. As we're coming up on the halfway break, again that comes at lap 125. Ted Christopher out in front of the 50. And so Chuck Hosfeld has had a bumper view of Ted Christopher this entire race. We'll see if that changes when we come back. Green flag racing continues at Martinsville Speedway. It's Ted Christopher. It's been all Ted Christopher so far tonight. Just behind him, Chuck Hosfeld has held on to second most of the night. And now almost a side-by-side battle as Chuck Hosfeld looked as though he was going to use the 09 as a pick. That's Anthony Sesley. But Sesley's able to move out of the way, and they stay nose to tail, Ted Christopher and Chuck Hosfeld.
And Chuck's been able to close right up to the back of Teddy in traffic, but not able to do anything with him thus far. They were just a couple laps away from the halftime break.
123 laps have been complete. We're on lap 124. Bobby Hutchins on the inside, and the number 14 of Ted Christopher and Chuck Hosfeld as they go by. Next time by, they will be on lap 125, and we will then see the yellow flag come out as far as the halftime break, which the drivers were told at the drivers meeting prior to this race it would come out. And the big question is going to be, will Ted Christopher put tires on? Will he stop to put tires on later, because you can't do that at the break?
That's exactly my question to Ted Christopher. Is he going to put tires on? There's halfway right there, so we should be seeing the caution flag probably the next time. Actually, I think the caution flag is out now. Once Teddy Christopher completed lap 125, then they threw the caution flag.
And so the mandatory caution that has come out at the halfway point, and that being displayed because of the fact that we brought 2 series together, 2 touring divisions together of the Whelen Modifieds, the North and the South. They didn't want to have one series have an advantage over the other, and so they're going to bring them all on pit road. They'll be able to make changes to their cars. They'll be able to add fuel to their cars, but they will not be able to change tires.
That's right. Now that's, again, they're even in the playing field because they can all come in. They know that once they put fuel in them on this halftime break, they can all go the rest of the way. Now, if they decide on their own to change tires, like Mike Stefanik and some of the other guys did earlier, that's up to them. But they know that they can run this race on fuel when they fill them up here at the halftime break.
We see the green flag flying as far as the pits being open. And so Teddy Christopher will bring that number 13 down the pit road, as well as the number 50 of Chuck Hosfeld. He will follow him down, as well as the entire field will come now and file into their pit stalls as they follow the pace car down pit road. Again, this was the mandatory stop that we knew was going to happen. The guy who made the changes early prior to this stop was the 16 of Mike Stefanik. Now, he has fresher tires than the rest of the field. Some other cars did come down and get tires changed, but it could be that Ted Christopher has decided he will rest his fate on this set of tires and not come down and lose that track position, as would happen if he would come in and stop now, as Mike Stefanik will certainly stay out for the remainder of this race, you would think.
You would think so. And obviously Teddy's going to be able to put fuel in it right now, and he will be able to make it the rest of the way. So it's going to be a good question for him and his crew chief, what they're going to decide, if they want to give up the track position later on to put tires on. I think if they're going to do that, then they want to do it fairly quickly. Once we go back to racing, I think maybe the first caution flag after the halftime break is when we may see them come in and put tires on, if that's what they're going to do.
All of the drivers will stay in the cars. They will not unstrap or get out of the cars. This break will actually take a little bit of time. but they will keep all of the drivers in the cars. And again, as I had mentioned, no tires can be changed under this stop. This stop is a mandatory stop that was told to them at the drivers' meeting. They knew that they were going to come down, they were going to be able to add fuel, they were going to be able to make slight adjustments to the cars, but they could not change tires under this stop.
Yeah, they can do anything that they would normally do on a pit stop other than change tires, which is mostly what they do on pit stops.
Exactly. And so all of the teams attending to their drivers. Gary, who have you got to talk with so far?
Well, right now we're trying to get a word with Teddy Christopher as he is still strapped into his number 13 race car. He's been very dominant here so far with the number 13 car. He's just taken off his gloves. He's taken the helmet off, and we're going to try to get a quick word with him and talk to him. Teddy, first of all, how good has this car been running? It looks awesome.
Right now, it's real good, you know. Hopefully it'll be that same way for the next 125.
Now the last time guys like Mike Stefanik came in, they pitted and they took tires. You chose not to take tires. Why?
What's that?
You chose not to take tires. Why?
I don't know.
On that last pit stop, drivers like Mike Stefanik, he came in, took on tires along with several other drivers. You chose not to come in. Why?
I drive the car. I'm not the crew chief.
Okay, of course, Barry Connell is the crew chief, and right now Teddy Christopher is so strapped into the car, taking a swig of water here. And Teddy, what kind of changes are they making to this race car? It's already good. What else needs to be done to it?
Yeah, I hit the wall. I hit the wall in the back straightaway there, and with about 10 to go, and his toes off a little bit.
When will you come in and get tires on this number 13 car?
I don't know. Probably in a little while, I guess.
Okay, Teddy Christopher not saying too much as he's still strapped into the race car. Doesn't know exactly when he's going to get tires, as right now the crew continues to work on the car. They took the hood off the race car. They are also taking tire temperatures as well, and they are going through this car with a fine-tooth comb. And so far, this number 13 car has been very dominant as Teddy Christopher continues to sit in the Mystique Motorsports Chevrolet. Rick?
Hey, Gary, I think he knows if he's going to take tires on. He's just not going to tell you.
He's keeping his strategy pretty tight to the belt.
Hey, Chuck Hosfeld is out of the car. I got Chuck a clean shot.
Well, there you have it. Chuck Hosfeld also has climbed out of the car. I believe Ted Christopher is going to climb out of the car and accept a check for leading at the halfway point, but I think Gary is caught up with Chuck. Gary?
Yeah, Chuck is running around. He just got out of his race car. Chuck, so far, strong race car, been running second behind Teddy Christopher. What's the game plan?
Well, I'll tell you what, Teddy's fast, and we've been able to hang with him. He surprised me because it goes back to that damn redraw that we talked about. But he surprised me that he's that quick, and we're running right with him. Hopefully we'll make a couple changes here and see if we can't get by him, or, we still have to pit yet, too. So the race is still up in the air, but our car has been great, and our team did a great job.
Right now, what is your crew doing to the race car? Second question to you, when are you coming in for tires?
Well, we'll be coming in soon. Right now they're adjusting some stagger. We're not going to do anything crazy because we're in good shape. So far, it looks like the two of us here can run away a little bit, and hopefully we come out on top out of the two of us. And now, problem is a lot of these good guys are able to adjust on their cars, so maybe you'll see 4 or 5 cars running up front with us.
Okay, that's Chuck Hosfeld, currently running second on the Speedway, but of course right now in this mandatory pit stop, the number 50 car in its pit stall as the number 50 racing team going to work on that car. Rick?
Well, a little bit of strategy taking place, Phil.
Yeah, I think Chuck's planning on putting tires on. Teddy, I think he's not going to tell us anyway. He may be planning on putting tires, but again, I think if they're going to do it, they're going to do it fairly quickly after this halftime break.
We're at halfway, and it's Ted Christopher dominating the Made in America Whelen 300. Let's recap the Whelen 300 under the lights for the first time at Martinsville Speedway, and it only took 2 laps before we got spun around and our first caution came out. It's been a Teddy Christopher, Chuck Hosfeld battle all night long, but the cautions continued as problems with the number 10 of Eddie Flemke happens, as well as problems with the 44 of Reggie Ruggiero. He gets on the curb.
Little contact with the 69 of Junior Miller.
So that brought us to our 7th caution, which was the halftime break, and now the cars are back out on the track and ready to get started again.
Look at the rubber, how it's building up in the corners on this racetrack. And I was talking to Ted Christopher, and I was talking about these tires and how much grip they had. He said it really is pretty good, until Chuck Hosfeld said the same thing. When you get that rubber buildup, then the tire just wants to slide across that rubber. So you may have a tight condition because of that rubber in the corners.
And so Ted Christopher jumping out in front again of Chuck Hosfeld. Just behind them, the 01 of Rick Fuller holding on to fourth. Eric Beers in the fourth position. Fuller is in third. Look at the cars stacking up.
Got a couple different pit strategies right now. We know that Mike Stefanik, some of the other fellows, Doug Kobe made pit stops. Junior Miller was another one of the ones that made the pit stop around the 100 lap mark. See, there's the 16 of Mike Stefanik. There's the 44 of Reg Ruggiero, running side by side in a battle for a top 10 position. And you've got our leader like Teddy Christopher and the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld, Rick Fuller, Eric Beers. All of these guys have not changed tires yet. Now, are they going to change tires or not? It makes me wonder if Teddy Christopher in the 13 has decided to run this entire race on the same set of tires.
Well, and as Gary Denko was trying to find out from him when he was going to come in, he kind of kept that information close to his chest. So he wasn't giving any information as to what his pit strategy was going to be. Mike Stefanik, though, we know what his pit strategy was. He took the tires before the halftime break. Now he's got a lot fresher tires than all of the cars that are in front of him. All 7 of the cars have older tires than Mike Stefanik.
Teddy Christopher's continued to run some terrific lap times. That last lap was a 19.66. Qualifying was just in the very, very high 18-second bracket for Chuck Hosfeld, who was our fastest qualifier. So he's still running very competitive lap times. He may decide to run this entire 250 laps on the same set of tires.
Well, let's find out. Gary Denko has found somebody who's actually told them what they're doing with their tires. Gary?
Well, I just talked with Phil Moran, Chuck Hosfeld's crew chief. I said, Phil, I talked to Barry Connell, and he doesn't know when he's coming in for tires. When are you coming in for tires? He said, Gary, we will be in on the next caution. I can guarantee you that. So look for Hosfeld in the 50 car, the next caution, to be on pit road for fresh rubber.
What's going on with the 13th, though, Gary? Is Ted going to come in or not?
Well,
oh, and there's the caution.
I thought now.
We're going to find out right here in a few minutes. There's it looks like the 87 of Alex Hogue. Alex Hogue gets turned around. I think if they're going to pit, now is going to be the time. They're going to have just over 100 laps to go, and I think if they're going to pit, they want to get in enough time that they can have enough time to get by all these cars, because I think people like Mike Stefanik and Doug Kobe, they're going to stay out on the racetrack, and so most of the leaders will have some cars they'll have to negotiate when they go back to green flag racing, and I think they want as much time to do it as they can have.
When this caution came out, there are 26 cars that are on the lead lap. And so you would expect, or we would think, that at this time, the ones up front would take this opportunity to come in and get fresh tires, because they've got to have as much time as possible to get by some of these other cars that might stay out on the track for track position. This time by, the pit road is closed. We saw the red with the yellow X over it, flag being displayed. So Ted Christopher will stay out for another lap around Martinsville Speedway.
I think they will probably open pit road the next time by. So I think whatever decision they're going to make, they've already made it, and they're either going to come in this time, or I think if they don't come in this time, it really would surprise me that they would wait any longer to put tires on.
So it's either come in or stay out on those tires the remainder of this race, as we're coming up on almost 100 laps of racing to go.
Modified cars are allowed to pull up the pit, so that's why you see double file right now, because the cars on the inside are actually pulling up to the pace car or to the leader to make their way down pit road. It looks like Ted Christopher's pulled way over to the left. It looks like he is going to make his way to pit road this time.
He's showing that he's going to come down pit road. He goes across the commitment line, and Ted Christopher will come in, but strategy on the number 50, Chuck Hosfeld, stays out on the track, and so Chuck Hosfeld is going to take over the top spot.
Well, he's the one guy that we thought we could count on to come in on this caution flag to put tires on, and he didn't do it.
Unbelievable. They had mentioned to Gary that they were going to come down on the next caution it comes out. We see Ted Christopher coming down pit road, and we see Chuck Hosfeld staying out to take over the top spot. Gary, are you down there in Ted's pit?
Yes, I am. I'm waiting for Teddy Christopher, the driver of the Mystique Motorsports Chevrolet. He comes to a rest in his pit stop as the crew, led by Barry Cannell, they go to work on the right side of the car. It's going to be right side rubber as the crew having a problem there on the right front. They get that all secured. Now they're going around to the left side of the car, and they're going to change the left side rubber as well. So Mark Hosmer, Michael Sullivan, and the rest of the crew going to work on the Mystique Motorsports Chevrolet as they take on 4 tires on this pit stop. He is down and away.
So Ted Christopher comes in for fresh tires, and Chuck Hosfeld stays out. And look at the car that's right behind Chuck Hosfeld, and that is the 16 of Mike Stefanik. And Mike Stefanik stopped for tires before the halftime break.
That's right. He only has about 30 green flag laps on his tires, but I'll tell you, Chuck Hosfeld has had an extremely good car this entire race. He's been running very, very quick lap times. So it's interesting to see if Mike Stefanik, with his fresher tires, are going to be able to do anything with Chuck Hosfeld.
Chuck Hosfeld has had to just remain behind that 13 of Ted Christopher for 141 laps, and now it's Chuck Hosfeld who's out in front of this field with Mike Stefanik just behind him. All right, Gary, what's going on?
Well, I just talked to Phil Moran again, the crew chief for Chuck Hosfeld. I said, I thought you told me you were coming in to get some fresh rubber. He said, Gary, I kind of fibbed. Track position here at Martinsville is very important, and that's the reason why we didn't come down on pit road.
Gary, there was no kind of fib to that. He absolutely flagrantly lied to you that he was going to pit as soon as the caution flag came out. So pretty good strategy, though, on his part. We're going to have to forgive him from this little lie.
We'll see if it's good strategy when we restart, and Mike Stefanik is just behind the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld. Can Chuck Hosfeld stay out in front and win the Made in America Whelen 300? We'll find out when we come back. And welcome back to Martinsville Speedway under the lights for the first time ever for the Made in America Whelen 300 on Speed Channel. The modified touring series, both the North and the Southern divisions meeting tonight at Martinsville, Virginia. Hello everyone, I'm Rick Allen alongside of Phil Parsons and Gary Denko covering all the action down on pit road. And we're about to restart. The interesting strategy taking place tonight by Chuck Hosfeld. He has decided to stay out and take track position. And a lot of cars around him have already come in and have new fresh tires, but Chuck Hosfeld thinking that he might be able to hold off these guys on his older tires.
Yeah, I'd say it's going to be a pretty good strategy. You know, we know that a car with 30 or 40 laps fresher tires right there, Mike Stefanik, the 16 is on his outside. This may be a good test right here to see what Chuck has for Mike Stefanik.
Chuck running awfully high on that restart, and in doing so, he allows the 77 of Doug Kobe to take over the second spot as Stefanik was not able to hold on to that position.
Yeah, Chuck kind of moved Mike up the hill a little bit. Big trouble.
Got a problem here. The 9th caution of the night coming out. The 07 of Frank Fleming, the 09 of Anthony Sesley involved in this one, as well as the 14 of Bobby Hutchins. And welcome back to Racing Under the Lights at Martinsville Speedway. I'm Rick Allen alongside of Phil Parsons. Down on pit road, Gary Denko bringing you all the action of the North and Southern divisions of the Whelen Modifieds for the Whelen 300. Pace car about to come off of the racetrack and put the reins in the hands of the number 50, Chuck Hosfeld. He will take over the top spot. Just outside of him, the number 77 of Doug Kobe. And we are back underway as the green flag flies.
Remember the 77 of Doug Kobe, the 16 right behind Chuck Hosfeld. Both have fresher tires than does Chuck Hosfeld, but he's able to pull out in front. Mike Stefanik gets back by Doug Kobe for the second position.
Oh, and pinching down on the 41 of Jay Hedgecock. This is the 99 of Jamie Tomato.
Great side-by-side battle. Jay from High Point, North Carolina. Jamie, one of the Northern modified stalwarts, a former champion in this series back in 1990.
So they've now gone back to single file. Gets a little hairy there when we get side by side. We've seen A lot of cautions tonight, 9 cautions so far as we've completed 154 laps.
They will run side by side on the restart through lap 175, so we only have about 20 more laps potentially of side-by-side restarts, and I'm sure Chuck Hosfeld would love to see these restarts single file.
Chuck Hosfeld now able to hold off the number 16 of Mike Stefanik. Now, as long as Mike Stefanik stays out there on the track and continues these green flag laps, his tires are going to continue to wear, and so he will not have as much of an advantage on Chuck Hosfeld as if he was able to pass him right now.
That's right, with the 13 of Teddy Christopher right there, you see him. Ooh, Junior Miller, the 69, gets sideways. What a great save. The 13 of Teddy Christopher was trying to get by the 69 of Junior Miller, was able to do that. He moved up into the 7th position. Remember, Teddy Christopher, the 13, has the freshest tires on the racetrack, along with a lot of other guys, but they've got about 30, 40 laps less on their tires than, trouble, Reg Ruggiero.
And problems have come out as the caution flag flies for the 10th time.
Boy, it almost looked like there was something on the racetrack, because we saw the 69 of Junior Miller get sideways there for really no apparent reason. We saw the 13 of Teddy Christopher get a little bit sideways. Reg turned around almost before we even got to the corner. See if we can take a look back. Watch the 44. He's going to be on the inside. You see definitely a streak of oil or some sort of a liquid on the racetrack. Unfortunately, Reg got in that, turned him around before he even got to the corner. I think that's what happened with the 69 of Junior Miller when the 13 of Teddy Christopher was trying to get by him.
And while all of this was taking place, I believe we've had a change at the top spot. Mike Stefanik took over the top spot from the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld. As we were taking a look at that accident, Stefanik had just gotten by the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld. And we take a look at it now. That's Hosfeld in the number 50, Stefanik in the 16.
This may be a situation where Chuck may get in that loose stuff there. See if he gets through that corner. Okay. Oh, he got a little bit loose off the corner. Got real sideways. Mike Stefanik, the 16, drives right by him to take the lead.
So Stefanik has taken over the top spot as we're under our 10th caution of the night. That is our 3rd different leader in the Made in America Whelen 300 on Speed Channel. We'll be back with more Green Flag Racing. And welcome back to the Made in America Whelen 300. Those are fresh tires, and they are in the pit stall of the number 50 of Chuck Hosfeld. His crew chief, Phil Moran, saying, well, we're going to try to make it on one set of tires.
At least I think he's going to. Again, we've got a little bit over 80 laps to go. Chuck lost the lead, so the strategy hasn't really worked that well, because he got a little bit loose off of turn number 2. But see what he can do now that he's got some racetrack in front of him.
You see the drying agent that they put on the track is taking any fluid away from that last caution that came out. This is side-by-side racing. Mike Stefanik in the inside, Jay Hedgecock on the outside. Now Hedgecock's going to fall in line in second, just in front of Chuck Hosfeld.
Jay's had a pretty steady car all night. He worked his way into the top 10, had some good pit strategy. Now he's currently being shown in the 2nd position. He's got a great car, the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld behind him. And I think everyone's keeping their eyes open for the 13 of Teddy Christopher. He's already up to the 5th position. He restarted 7th. He's already passed 2 cars on this since this last restart.
Ted Christopher dominating the first half of this race. Then we thought it may have been a mistake. He didn't come in under the first caution after the break. But then the second one that came out, he does come in. And we thought that Hosfeld was going to come in, and Hosfeld stays out. And so role reversal as far as pit strategy, but Ted Christopher now trying to make his way back up into the top 3 as he's made his way into 4th. Oh, and we've got another caution come out.
It's at the 87, Alex Hogue. Teddy made his way by the 77 of Doug Kobe up into the 4th position.
Alex Hogue got spun around on lap 139, bringing out the 8th caution of the night. Now again, the 11th caution coming out at the hands of Alex Hogue. Alex currently 8th in the point standings on the Southern Modified Tour.
Remember what we talked about before? We saw oil on the racetrack. You see the 69 of Junior Miller. I said, what a great save. You see the Teddy Christopher, the 13 car, gets sideways, and then just Just moments later, the 44 Reg Ruggiero gets his right sides in that same moisture, turns around, makes contact with the inside wall. While this was going on, that moisture is all the way around the racetrack. The 50 of Chuck Hosfeld got his right sides in that moisture, and that allowed the 16 of Mike Stefanik to take over the lead. Mike now currently leads here as we get ready to restart this race.
Green flag flies, the Made in America Whelen 300 continuing on Speed Channel. Mike Stefanik, as Phil had just mentioned, in the top position. And this will be the last time we'll see a double file restart, Phil.
Exactly. Just inside of 175 laps was the only times they were going to restart with double file. Right now he's got a great side-by-side battle. Chuck, the 50, Chuck Hosfeld on the inside of Jay Hedgecock, the 41. He's going to take over the second position. Now he's going to set his sights on the number 16 of Mike Stefanik, but here comes the 13 of Teddy Christopher. He's now up in the third position, right behind Chuck Hosfeld, a view he hasn't seen because he was ahead of Chuck Hosfeld for 140 laps.
Ted Christopher led the first 141 laps of this race, and now setting his sights on second. Chuck Hosfeld was the man who he battled with all those 141 laps as Christopher was out in front of Hosfeld. Now Hosfeld in front of Christopher. Christopher on fresher tires than Hosfeld, though.
Chuck would love to get by the 16 of Mike Stefanik and get a little bit of interference because it looks like Teddy Christopher, the 13, he's able to use those new tires. He's able to turn a little bit better in the center of the corner. He's able to get a little bit more bite up off the corner. So I think he's going to try to make those new tires count for him. He's got a great car right now. He's had a great car all night.
Stefanik with about 30 laps more on his tires than Ted Christopher out in front of this. And again, Hosfeld never changed tires, so after his qualifying effort, he had to put those tires back on that he qualified and had to start the race on those tires. So those are the tires he's still running on right now.
Gary, what's going on with our leader, Mike Stefanik?
Well, I talked to Sly Sabin, Mike Stefanik's crew chief, and I says, what's Mike been saying about the race car? He said the car is very good. He says, however, the cautions are definitely helping him because he knows those guys that are behind him are on fresher tires. So the more cautions are going to help the six-time national modified champion, Mike Stefanik.
He's definitely right about the 13 of Teddy Christopher. He has a lot fresher tires, or about 30-40 laps, as you mentioned, fresher tires than Mike Stefanik does. But the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld, he's got the same Hoosier tires he started this race on.
Eric Beers and Doug Kobe, they've been battling back and forth.
Here goes Teddy on the inside of Chuck.
Not going to be able to make the pass, so Ted Christopher holding on to the third position as Chuck holding on to the second spot.
The 66 of John Blewett was able to get by Jay Hedgecock to take over the fourth position.
Eric Beers dropping back a spot. That number 3. Here are your top 3. Mike Stefanik out in front of Chuck Hosfeld, and the 13 of Ted Christopher. They run nose to tail down the backstretch.
Hey, Mike Stefanik knows how to use his car. He knows how to make that car whine. He's won 66 of these races, countless Busch North races, a couple championships in the Busch North division, 6 modified championships. He's no stranger to winning races, and he knows how to keep that 50 of Chuck Hosfeld behind him. And he would love to keep the 13 of Teddy Christopher behind the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld.
Battle for 6th. Eric Beers in the number 3.
That's the 41 of Jay Hedgecock in 5th. Erickson 6th. Got the 77 of Doug Kobe, that yellow car you caught a glimpse of. He's in the 7th position. Jamie Tomeno with a great run, a top 10 run going in 8th. And Tony Hirschman, who we saw have trouble early on, has made his way back into the top 10.
Jamie Tomeno, a best finish of 2nd. He's done that twice here. Never been able to capture a win at Martinsville. Has 3 wins for his career in the modified tour division.
Champion back in 1990. Won a lot of races before the modified tour started in 1985. Jamie's been around a long time. Won an awful lot of races back in the early 80s.
Almost side-by-side racing as we see Jamie Tomeno in that number 99.
Side-by-side for 5th.
Eric Beers on the inside. That's the 41. Jay Hedgecock dropping back. We saw Jay had restarted in 2nd, but now drops back to 5th position. And actually losing 5th to Eric Beers, so drops to 6th even.
Chuck Hosfeld was able to move up from his 3rd place start on the restart, got by the 41 of Jay Hedgecock. Here comes the 77 of Doug Hovey. He's going to try to take over that 6th position from Jay.
Pretty strong run so far for the 16 of Mike Stefanik, being able to hold off Chuck Hosfeld. Stefanik, we had talked about, was able to come in before the halftime break, change tires. We thought that was a good strategy. Was able to work his way through the slower traffic in front of him that didn't have as fresh of tires, and then was able to get out in front. And now we see Ted Christopher getting right on the back bumper of the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld.
Right now, it's been a great strategy for Mike Stefanik, especially if he can keep the 50 car of Chuck Hosfeld, who doesn't appear to be able to do much with him. If he can keep him between himself and Teddy Christopher, then it was a terrific strategy. But Teddy Christopher's going to have to get by Chuck Hosfeld pretty soon. He can pull right up to his left rear corner, but not quite able to pull right up beside him. But Teddy's going to run out of time here. We've got a little bit over 50 laps to go, so he's going to want to get by Chuck Hosfeld because he needs some time to work on Mike Stefanik.
Ted Christopher, with those fresher tires, able to come a little bit lower coming out of the turns on both turns 4 and 2. Wasn't able to take advantage of it, though.
He's showing a lot of patience because he pulls right up beside of Chuck, right on his left rear corner. Chuck drives it hard into the corner, and Ted does not push the issue, but he's going to have to do something. You see a little bit of gap forming now between our leader, Mike Stefanik, and Chuck Hosfeld. That's going to allow for the patience to be a little bit shorter.
Now they're trying to work their way around slower lap traffic. Chuck Hosfeld going on the high side. He made passes early on in this race on the high side. Teddy Christopher also taking that route, holding on to the 3rd position. But as you had mentioned, a big gap now forming between the 16 of Mike Stefanik and the number 50 of Chuck Hosfeld.
I think Chuck is really feeling the effects of those older tires. He's got 195 laps on his tires right now. Teddy Christopher only has about 50 laps on his tires.
Some of the cars moving on the high side of the track, getting out of the way.
Great run for John Blewett. He's only run 8 times this year. He's a 7-time modified tour winner. He's got a best finish of 2nd this year at Seacon. He's got a terrific run going in right now in a 4th position.
Just in front of that number 3 of Eric Beers. Again, the battle is for 2nd. John Blewett currently holding on to the 4th spot. Ted Christopher all over the back of the number 50. It looked as though he was going to make a move, but he wasn't able to do it. Chuck Hosfeld running a good race right now on tires that are definitely older than anyone else on the track, and he's able to hold on to the 2nd spot. But here comes Ted Christopher trying to make that move. He goes on the low side of the track. The 50 of Chuck Hosfeld not able to run as low a line.
Got a lot of brake heat right now on Teddy Christopher. Remember, we talked about when you're running in traffic, you use a lot more brakes than you do if you're running out with clean racetrack. A lot of rotor temperature. You see the rotors are glowing cherry red on the 13 of Teddy Christopher because he's doing all he can do. You can see right there, inside the right front wheel is a red hot rotor because he's doing all he can do in this traffic to try to get by Chuck Hosfeld.
And he has to lay on the brakes because he's faster than Chuck Hosfeld, but not able to get around, so he slows down. Speaking of brakes, we're going to take one more. And as Ted Christopher will make the pass or attempt it, he goes to the inside, but will be blocked. We'll be back with more racing. Welcome back. The battle continues. Chuck Hosfeld in the 50, Ted Christopher in the 13, and now tempers are going to start to rise as we are inside of 50 laps of racing to go, 48 to go, and Ted Christopher on the inside. He will make the pass on the 50 as they go down the backstretch.
He slid through that corner sideways, but he knew he had to get by the 50. Oh, contact right there.
And that is not a good thing for Chuck Hosfeld, as the caution will fly. That was the 66 of John Blewett III that was on the inside of Chuck.
Looked like he tried to pull up in the hole there, and I'm not sure if Chuck came down the racetrack a little bit or maybe the 66 of John Blewett came up the racetrack, but nonetheless they made some contact. Teddy Christopher, the 13, was able to make his way by. The 16 and the 50 came together in a battle for the 3rd position.
That's 66 again of John Blewett III. was battling for the 3rd spot. The 13 of Ted Christopher had taken over 2nd from Chuck Hosfeld, and now Chuck will work his way around the track and probably has a little frustration built up in that number 50.
He doesn't need to pit yet, though. He needs to stay on the racetrack. He did stay on the racetrack because the pit road is still closed right now, and he does not want to get a penalty. Let's see if we can take a look at what happened. Teddy Christopher was able to get up beside him. You see him clearly make the pass on the 50. Now the 66 of John Blewett's going to try to do the same thing. He gets almost to the door. Looks like he wasn't quite down. It's just one of those racing accidents here on a very tight half-mile here at Martinsville.
Take another vantage point of this. That's the 66, John Blewett the 3rd.
John was pretty low on the racetrack. He wasn't against the curb, but he was within a foot or two. And I'm sure it was a situation where the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld would love to have kept the 66 of John Blewett behind him. Now I think he's going to, might as well come in the pits and get his tires now.
Inside of 50 laps, Chuck Hosfeld trying to stay out there and use pit strategy. But now after spinning while battling for 3rd, he will have to come in and take new tires. We'll be back with more from Martinsville. And welcome back to the Made in America Whelen 300 on Speed Channel from Martinsville Speedway under the lights. Modified Tour running its first combined race, Northern and Southern Division. And out in front of this one, it is the 16 of Mike Stefanik.
Our best car all night has been the 13 of Teddy Christopher. Let's see what he can do with Mike Stefanik. While Teddy was trying to get by the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld, Mike was able to open up a bit of a lead, but Teddy Christopher has been on the money this entire race. But I tell you, Mike Stefanik only has about 30 more laps on his tires than does Teddy Christopher, and we've talked about that. Teddy get a little bit loose coming off the corner there. He's doing all he can do. He knows he's only got about 40 laps to go. It's time to do it.
Right behind them, the 66 of John Blewett the 3rd. John Blewett the 3rd and the 50 of Chuck Hosfeld getting together, bringing out our 12th caution of the night. This restart was single file as we are past 175 laps. That's what NASCAR had determined was the final lap that they would go double file restart. So single file restart for Mike Stefanik out in front of Ted Christopher.
If Teddy Christopher is able to get by the 16 of Mike Stefanik, I don't think it's going to be a situation that his tires were 30 or 40 laps fresher. Just he had a better race car. He had such a good race car tonight. He led the first, 140 laps or whatever that was, and he has been so good tonight. Mike Stefanik was mired back a little bit in traffic because he started back in the 21st position. He got up into the top 10 very quickly, had some great pit strategy, and he's going to end up more than likely with a great finish because of it. It may even be a win.
Stefanik out in front. He would want to add to the win column for Mike Stefanik. He's won 66 of these modified races 4 times at this track. If he would be able to win tonight, he would have the most wins ever at Martinsville for the modified series.
And he hasn't won this year in the modified series. He's only run 8 races. He's had a couple 4th place finishes that have been his best, but he typically always wins races when he runs these modifieds. And he's won 2 Busch North races this year, which he hadn't done for a couple of years. So he's already been in the win column, but he hasn't done it in the modifieds yet.
Well, he's got his hands full tonight with Ted Christopher. Ted Christopher with a dominant car early on, as you had mentioned, led the first 141 laps. Didn't look like anyone was going to be able to contest him. And then as we went to our halftime break, Ted Christopher still had not come in for tires, and it looks as though Ted Christopher getting aggressive now, as he almost got into the back of Mike Stefanik.
Well, he just wanted to let Mike know that he was there. He just wanted to make sure that Mike didn't forget that he was there. He was just a very square tap in the rear bumper, did not upset Mike's car whatsoever. Again, we're in about 34 laps to go there. It's time for Teddy to try to make his way by him. He's not able to do the things to Chuck Hosfeld that he was able to do to Chuck Hosfeld. He was able to pull up almost at will up to the left rear corner of Chuck Hosfeld. He's not quite able to do that with Mike Stefanik.
Stefanik had come in before the halftime break during a caution, put on 4 fresh tires. Ted Christopher waited until after the halftime break. A caution came afterwards. He was able to put 4 fresh tires on. And so those two are now battling for the win, but you can't count out the 66 of John Blewett the 3rd, who's right behind them.
I think right now that obviously the 13 of Teddy Christopher has a big quicker car than does Mike Stefanik, but it's not that easy to pass here. He had a good look at him the last lap coming off turn number 4, not quite able to make the move though.
And it's not out of the realm of possibility that these two guys racing for the win could get into each other, and boom, the door opens up and you see the 66 of John Blewett III come right through and take the win.
We've seen that happen so many times there, but these a lot of experience right there in the top 2 positions in Mike Stefanik and Teddy Christopher. A lot of heavy traffic now. They're starting to lap by some cars. And what a horrible break that Teddy Christopher got that time in lap traffic. Randy Butner, the 5, he caught him just at the wrong time, and it allowed the 16 of Mike Stefanik to open up about 5 or 6 car lengths.
Stefanik now working his way through the slower lap traffic and doing a fine job at negotiating around these cars, timing it just right so he has the inside line as he goes through the corner, as Ted Christopher had to go to the outside, so a little bit further around the track.
When you're lapping these cars like this, you want to pass. Oh, trouble. There's Jay Hedgecock, unfortunately. Had a great run going. He was being shown in the 6th position, but not sure exactly what happened. I don't see a great deal of damage to the car, but unfortunately he did get it turned around. He needs a push.
Jay Hedgecock getting spun around. We'll show you exactly what happened when we come back. But for now, it's Mike Stefanik's show. Ted Christopher would like to spoil that. We'll see if it happens when we come back. We're closing in on the final laps of the Made in America Whelen 300 on Speed Channel. Mike Stefanik out in front of Ted Christopher, but for how long, we don't know. Ted Christopher dominating the first half of this race. Mike Stefanik now wants to hold on. Gets the big win at Martinsville, making his 5th win here at this
contact,
track.
big time contact for the lead.
Ted Christopher driving right by as Mike Stefanik not able to hold him off on the restart. And so Ted Christopher back out in front. That is a very familiar position for him.
And now I think nobody's going to be able to touch Teddy Christopher, because it looked like Mike got a pretty good restart. I said, well, he's comfortable now. And then Teddy was able to pull right up beside him as they entered the corner. Ooh, that was a close situation right there with that car pulling on pit road.
Bobby Hutchinson, the 14, pulled off of the track. Now Ted Christopher, his best ever at Martinsville in the modifieds is 5th. Phil.
Yeah, let's see if we can see this restart and see how he was able to get up beside Mike Stefanik in the 16. Here they go. Here they take off right here, and he was just a little bit slow when they got to the start-finish line. It allowed Teddy to get up. They made some pretty good contact. Left rear of Mike Stefanik, the right front of Teddy Christopher, but Teddy was there.
Teddy had the position, held on to it, and now Stefanik has been relegated back to 2nd.
Remember, we're going to have all single file restarts if we have any more caution flags, so there will be no side-by-side restarts for Mike Stefanik to be able to restart on the outside of Teddy Christopher.
20 laps of racing to go. Ted Christopher putting some distance between himself and 2nd place Mike Stefanik.
Right now it looks like his strategy worked pretty well of pitting when he did, but again, he had such a good car that I think the situation wasn't the fact that Mike Stefanik had 30 lap older tires than he did. Teddy Christopher just had a dominant car tonight.
And a great restart the last time we restarted. So Mike Stefanik now drops back to 2nd. 3rd is John Blewett III in the number 66 car.
Eric Beers, the 3 car, running 4th.
Rounding out the top 5, Doug Kobe in the number 77.
Good run for Jamie Tomeno back in the 6th position. A good run here for a long-time modified competitor. Tony Hirschman, our point leader, being shown in 7th.
8th is the 79 of Mike Christopher, brother to our leader right now, twin brother actually.
And the 06 Steve Witt is running 9th, and Todd Zegedy running 10th in the 00 car.
Going by the start-finish line, 17 laps of racing to go. Ted Christopher trying to improve on a 5th, which is his best finish ever at Martinsville in the modifieds.
Going to get a grandfather clock if he wins this race here, and that's something everybody that's come to Martinsville for the last 30 years has always looked forward to, and they always traditionally give away the grandfather clocks on Sundays. This is the first time I think they're ever going to give a grandfather clock away on a Saturday, and it's Saturday night.
That's right, Saturday night racing under the lights at Martinsville Speedway. Ted Christopher has been a dominant car so far, leading 150 laps around Martinsville. Gary.
I just checked in with Barry Cunell, the crew chief for Ted Christopher in that Mystique Motorsports Chevrolet, car number 13. I looked at him and I said, Barry, what does it look like? He gave me the thumbs up, he showed me the stopwatch, and he gave me the thumbs up once again. They feel confident here in the 13 cam that they're going to victory lane here in Martinsville.
There's still a lot of racing to go, Phil. I would hate to be overly confident. And with the experience of Ted Christopher, obviously, he's not overly confident. He knows he's got a good car. He needs to bide his time right now, not do anything crazy, get around the slower lap cars, and not allow that 16 of Mike Stefanik to close the gap.
I think that the only danger he has right now is a lap car. If he gets hung up in lap traffic, then that would allow the 16 of Mike Stefanik to catch up to him. But so far, he's been doing a pretty immaculate job of getting by the lap traffic. He wants this race to go green flag the rest of the way. He does not want to see any more caution flags.
The further he can get away from Mike Stefanik, the better off he'll be. Stefanik able to hold off the 66, still of John Blewett III. So Stefanik comfortably in second. Now Stefanik started about as far back as anyone we've seen that's been able to move up. He started in 21st position. So to get up to second and actually lead quite a few laps. Mike Stefanik leading 69 laps of this race. Great piece of driving by Mike Stefanik.
You know, Teddy Christopher came in this race only trailing Tony Hirschman by 13 points. Obviously, he's leading the race if he goes on to win. Tony Hirschman is running 7th. We will have a new point lead.
Points changes can take place tonight in Martinsville. And as we started the show off, a very historic night. How big would this be for Ted Christopher to win this race, win the clock under the lights for the first time at Martinsville?
Oh, it's going to be very big. This is probably going to be one of the biggest wins of Teddy Christopher's career because, you know, there's always been a mystique about Martinsville on the modifieds. Again, we talked about at the very open of the show. The history of the modifieds here at Martinsville goes back, you know, 30, 40, 50 years. Anybody that ever raced the modified cars has come to Martinsville and run these cars.
Ted Christopher, as you had mentioned, was second in the points coming into this race. 4 wins on the season already. This would be win number 5 for Ted Christopher, and he would take over the points lead if he's able to hold on. And Hirschman is not able to close the gap. Tony Hirschman in the 48, currently being running or shown in the 7th position. And so Ted Christopher could take over the points, win the clock, and have win number 5 on the season.
All in all, would be a pretty good night.
Not a bad night at all. Eric Beers in the number 3, currently in the 4th position. Just behind John Blewett III.
He's had that one little glitch on a restart for Mike Stefanik. Otherwise, he's been run a pretty flawless race here. I thought that he may be able to have enough to hold off Teddy Christopher, but Teddy was able to get by him on that restart. They made some contact, but he was there. He pulled up beside him. They were right front wheel to left rear wheel, and unfortunately Mike Stefanik got the worst end of it, but he only lost the 1 position to lead to Teddy Christopher.
With 5 laps to go as they go across the start-finish line, it's 4 laps of racing to go. There isn't a car in between Ted Christopher and Mike Stefanik, and so Stefanik putting on a hard charge right now with 4 laps to go. He'd love to catch up to Ted Christopher, but Ted Christopher has been so strong all night.
He really has, but you see, obviously he got by the lap car right there. Now Mike Stefanik has to negotiate his way around Kevin Konopka in the number 51 car.
Just under 3 laps of racing to go. Stefanik holding on to second. John Blewett III is in the 3rd position. The 3 of Eric Beers' 4th. 2 laps of racing to go for the 13 of Teddy Christopher.
What a great job by his crew. We questioned his strategy of not pitting before the halftime break and appeared to have worked flawlessly. Again, I think if he would have pitted at lap 100 when Mike Stefanik did, he had such a good race car, he was going to make his way back up front like he is.
White flag is displayed, meaning that even if a caution would come out right now, it is all Ted Christopher. Teddy Christopher goes down the backstretch. on his final lap at Martinsville. This will be his first ever win at the historic Martinsville Speedway. As he comes out of turn number 4, it's Ted Christopher winning the Made in America Whelen 300.
What a dominating performance by Teddy Christopher.
His guys have got to be very, very proud of the effort they put forth tonight. Stefanik coming home in second. Third was the 66 of John Blewett III. Eric Beers coming home fourth. Fifth was that 77 of Doug Kobe.
Jamie Tomeno, the 99, comes home with a 6th place finish.
165 laps. The number 13 of Ted Christopher was out in front of this field. He led the first 141, but then after he stopped to get tires, he had to go back and make his way through the field.
Well, let's show how he did it here. This is going to be the pass for the lead. Again, right on a restart, they go down at turn number 1. They make a little bit of contact. They both get sideways, but Teddy's able to get back in the throttle, able to drive by the 16 of Mike Stefanik.
The move of the race for Ted Christopher, getting by Mike Stefanik. Ted Christopher taking the helmet off. He will begin celebrating in just a few moments. We'll be there for all the celebration right after this. The Made in America Whelen 300 on Speed Channel is complete. From Martinsville Speedway under the lights for the first time, and it was Ted Christopher, victorious. His first time ever winning at Martinsville. And standing by with our winner, Gary Danko.
His 21st career win, and it comes right here at Martinsville Speedway. Teddy, how special is this?
Oh, it's real special. You know, it's, especially being sponsored by Whelen. You know, in my home state. You know, in Martinsville has such an aura of it, and I really like that that clock. That's the biggest thing, is winning the clock, and it all starts with our car owner, Jim Galantia. I mean, I really want to thank him because he provides us with the best equipment and great crew guys here. And Larry Wallace horsepower underneath the hood on that restart definitely made the difference. And you know, he's the one who Jim's the one who gave us the opportunity to buy Fords and the best possible motor we could get. And Larry built it for us, and Tony Correnti, and I really want to thank them, and Barry and all the guys. I mean, it was just an awesome race car from the start of the race, where I led so many laps, and then just coming up through pretty good there, and a couple close calls with like Chucky and Michael. I was just getting one. I said, "Geez, didn't you know I was underneath it?" He goes, "Yeah, I was crowding as much as I can." I'm like, I'm not really good at getting in there sideways, but twice I was, and we bumped a little bit, but then once I got ahead of him, we did have a better car than him, so. It was a great race, man, and hopefully this will be good for the points, and we got a good stretch coming, some real good races where our cars have run well, and we had a little lull in the middle of the summertime, and hopefully this brings it back up, and we can hopefully win this championship at the end of the year.
A very happy Teddy Christopher here in Victory Lane at Martinsville Speedway as he wins the Made in America Whelen 300.